And we try to make some calls, try to resolve without going to court. The courtroom is not our theater.
Oh,
It's a place of risk. So if we can settle and the client approves of it, look, if you have a medical malpractice claim, they're all settled. I mean, that's where everybody wants to go. It just costs money to litigate, bring in subject matter experts, and go to court and have a trial and all that.
welcome to the Brand Brief podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and key strategies that are driving brand growth. This podcast is powered by Brand Method Media Group, and I'm your host, Kelly Kelly. Today's guest is Bob Hanna, Director, National Sales and Marketing of Cohn Dussi LLC, a specialized Boston-based litigation firm that focuses on creditors' rights, commercial litigation, and financial services law. The firm distinguishes itself through a collaborative team approach and their proprietary Clues technology platform, which provides clients with real-time transparency and case management across all state and federal courts. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invitation.
So let's start by setting some context. Can you provide an overview of your role and some of your key responsibilities?
Sure, absolutely. The organization here is pretty tight. The owner of the firm, Louis Kahn, owns and manages 100% of our organization. And reporting to him is our COO, CFO, that's one individual, and myself. So I have national sales and marketing, as you disclosed, which includes everything from bringing in revenue to our organization, new clients. It also deals with the marketing aspects, managing the four Ps, price, place, product, and promotion, public relations, articles, attending conferences, association meetings, pretty much everything you can imagine when it comes to bringing on clients and dealing with clients for the long term. So I've been at this for over 40 years. I see no end in sight. I'm stuck, and it's a great gig to have. But it's a pleasure to be here. We have a great business and a lot to offer clients in the B2B space.
So the debt collection and creditors' rights industry has faced significant regulatory changes and digital transformation over the last decade. How have these shifts impacted your approach to client acquisition and relationship building?
Sure. So if you kind of peel that down when it comes to the compliance end and regulations and the federal and state rules that apply, a lot of it really is applicable to the consumer side in terms of protection and any sort of overreach by any sort of creditor out there. Creditor, by the way, would include not only banks and finance companies, but also include your local HVAC guy, your plumbing guy, your orthopedic surgeon, the hospitals themselves. Think of anybody that you may have to do business with from a consumer perspective. So we really don't do too much on the consumer end, only because of the risk involved with that type of activity. Again, we're compliant in what we do, but we keep that at a very tight limitation. The commercial side is almost you can do what you want, but not really. So everything's got to be ethically done. There are some states that have particular rules and regulations we have to abide by. And of course, the Fed has some interest in governing what we do and how we do it as well. So at the end of the day, in our business, it's not about how much money you collect, but actually how you do it. And that's kind of the notion here. So bringing on clients, we do look at contracts, what the obligations are of companies that we do business with and they may do business with. We have to make sure everything is within the laws, within the fence post of compliance. If there is a problem, we flag it. We may still have some remedies for our clients in recovering their money, recovering collateral, dealing with bankruptcy issues, estates as well. But everything's got to happen, within the laws that are applied. There are some rules right now that are sort of up in the air with certain states and others already in effect. So we are aware of all those. And the way to best be aware of them is to participate in the business niche that you're in. So, for example, we just got back from equipment leasing conferences, the International Factoring Association. We're on the committees, we're there, and we're aware of all the impacts to our So vertical markets that we serve and our clients that participate in them. When it comes to what we're doing here from a technology perspective, that's kind of part two of your question, I think. What we have done here is offer full transparency with all our clients. Most law firms, if you deal with them, small or large, you always hear the two biggest complaints. They don't return calls, which is usually the client asking to find out what's going on. And part two of it is maybe a billing dispute of some sort. I can clearly tell you those are not challenges here. With our firm, we have a platform here called Clues, was the client update and entry system. It's the only system I'm aware of that operates in real time and providing online statuses to our clients on any matter they may have across 50 states or including Canada or any other international location. So we provide all that information and data to our clients around the clock, 24 by 7, which again is part of full transparency. And if there ever is an issue, it's easy for everybody to go to that system of record to see what's going on and is there any infraction, anything we may be going south on. So everybody's on the same page. If they're not, then they're not looking at clues. But we have that tool available to us. It's something that was here before I arrived. This firm's been around now for 30 years, and it's one of our hallmarks, one of our deliverables in terms of providing clients more control in the work that they're handing over to us. So hopefully I
I,
answer your questions.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. When we were doing research, I'd never heard of anything like that. And those, like you said, those are the two main pain points that someone on the other side would have. What's going on
Mhm.
with the case? And then they're ringing you up and bothering you when
Mhm.
now you have a platform and things can get lost in translation. But a central location, I think, probably mitigates a lot of misunderstandings or confusion.
Right, right. And you think about any large organization, pick on a big bank as an example, for them to work with two, three, 400 law firms across the country. I don't know. I worked at a bank, and to me, that was insanity. The invoices are all different. You got to check everything. I got to sign off everything before it gets paid. So my butt's on the line when I do that. So, from a best practices standpoint, it's best to kind of tidy it up and get it down to a number that's very manageable and you get to know your players. And by the way, again, they're active in the industries that they're active in. So we know the business, we know the risks, we know the jurisdictions. There's over 3,300 jurisdictions in this country. It's more complicated in 50 states alone. And then you got 9 or 10 provinces you need to deal with also up in Canada. And then get other local laws, other countries that may be out there. So we think we had the formula already set up properly, and the end result is now providing results for our clients, showing them the money, bringing back the collateral that belongs to them, getting out of a bankruptcy for them a better result than they had going in. That's what our business is all about.
Are you all leveraging AI in any way? And if so, how?
So AI, you have to be very careful with. I've used AI if I have to go, write a white paper or an article, kind of give me a leg up on what I need to get started with, but you can't trust what's in there. I can tell you that the AR organizations out there, the technology companies, are contacting law firms. There was one that was talking a couple of weeks ago with me about us reducing our costs by 90%. And that's interesting. And I said, so you're telling me that a 1,000-man law firm can probably furlough 90% of the staff? And he says, well, I'm not saying furlough, but what the guy corrected himself saying was they can go out and seek other additional work because they're more efficient. And I said, it really doesn't work that way. Here we may be able to take some shortcuts, but AI at the end of the day is looking for information others have written. There's other authors. There's a fear of plagiarism. You still have to check and double check everything that's going on. So at the end of the day, again, for articles, white papers, probably a good head start to take your brain knowledge and put it in boxes that make some sense. And I've used it once. It probably saved me an hour or two, but I can assure you it took me another 6 hours to get the article where I needed it to be and be representative of our company's end product. I don't think there's going to be any shortcuts on that. Maybe for billing and other sorts of things, or maybe for marketing. But as far as an attorney writing an opinion on something, you still have to go to the books. You need to go to Lexis. You can use some AI to help you do that, but it's not going to replace anything. I think it'll help you kind of formalize what you want to present, and it'll be in a tidy, organized way. Yeah, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, it's more of a support tool than a
Yeah,
replacement for an entire department.
absolutely. Like I said, it saved me a little bit of time to do a white paper, but a majority of the work, vast majority, was wordsmithing everything, and then of course you're running it past some partners to make
Of
sure,
course.
yeah, I'm not overreaching.
Yeah. And it, like you also said, it still has to be on brand. You're going to know your organization better than AI. AI can give you a lot of general information, but to make that connection and make it more personalized to your company, your culture, your competitive advantage, you've got to bridge that gap.
Right. Yeah. And I want to own that language. So if
Yeah.
that rolls back into AI and somebody just copies it and puts their name on it, we're going to have a problem with that.
Yeah. So, what strategies have proven most effective for reaching and engaging you all's ideal clientele, marketing wise?
It's an easy one. I've been saying it for over 40 years, and there's actually an article about marketing for law firms 101 if you look that up. So it's actually my LinkedIn page. You have to go to the watering hole where the animals are that you want to hunt. Okay. And the watering holes are the industries that are supported by the associations, by different groups, not for profit or for profit. So if you're going to go to consumer auto finance, Royal Media Company is a real good company to know. Pull a little plug in there for them. But they got the Auto Finance Summit and a few other flavors of auto finance. They've also expanded into the equipment finance space, believe it or not. And there we actually will toggle to Alpha, the Equipment Lease and Finance Association. The other organization, NEFA, is where the small to medium players go. Whereas, John Deere, Hitachi, Komatsu will go to the bigger event. We pay our dues every year. Literally, we sign the checks, we attend, we participate, we meet with people, we set up appointments, we do some entertaining as well. And we are there with them elbow to elbow on the issues that plague the industries that we're in, and to smooth those roads over and again recover money, get our clients money back into their pocket. There's others too. There's the factoring space. There's merchant cash advance space. Again, there seems to be an association for everything, and I've joked about it, but there is a website called allconferences.com. Every
Really?
conference in the planet is in there. I'm sure there's one for candlestick makers. I'm just, I just made that up, but I've gone to it to find other associations we may want to go to. Yeah.
Wow, I'll have to look that up because we're always trying to find where to go, especially coming off of the break of COVID. I think people are really factoring back in person and, building those relationships in real time. Again, that's becoming sort of back in the marketing mix from what I can see.
Yeah, yeah. The market's changed.
Yeah.
FaceTime is happening at the conferences. Many industries are learning that you don't have to have the FaceTime anymore. I'm proud to say when you work for a law firm, there is some level of credibility. We answer to higher authorities, but there may be some other businesses, that don't. Some local plumbing group, it could be a large group with 100 trucks, servicing a tri-state area here, but who they answer to, really nobody. Maybe the Better Business Bureau, and I don't know what the oversight is even like there at all. But we have to do everything clean, straight, professional here, and we go to where our prospects are going to meet at least annually. So we go to a lot of conferences. We spend a lot of money on it, but we're meeting with the people that care and that are in our business, the industries we want to support.
So, from your vantage point, having worked in both fintech and legal services, what tech developments do you see reshaping how law firms deliver services to financial institutions? Like, what do you see coming up in terms of what's going to be a factor?
Yeah, to be competitive, it's about the practice groups and intellectual capital that's there. So, I'll make it up, but if you wanted to expand into a space that you're not in today, let's just say, family law, just that grouping alone, and you don't have anybody, you're going to have to hire a lead guy to build that practice group. And I've worked for law firms that have done that, where they want to get into a certain space geographically or a particular vertical. And they'll hire the partner and tell them, You do a good job individually, you can build out and hire. And that's how you build it's almost like Amway in a sense where it's multi-level marketing, you build it out. But keep in mind, most of the law firms do, at least in our space, do a lot of work on an hourly basis. And that's got its restriction. If you were to work 9 to 5 as an attorney, and that'd be heaven, it's 40 hours a week. That's 2,000 hours a year. There's 173 working days in a month. That's a limitation. And so what all law firms seem to do is everybody gets pushed into working 3,000 hours a year. You work your weekends, you work 10 hours a day, you do what you have to do for the client. You work around the clock for the client as well. And at some point that breaks, and now you have to hire somebody new. And guess what? They come on board with the hourly model. It's got its inefficiencies, and to get around that, one of the options is to look at alternative fee arrangements. We do. So we handle not only hourly work, but we also handle contingency work and work on a flat fee. Work on a flat fee is routine work. It's got a beginning, middle, and an end, and you're done. If we need to repair a title, we can go out there and say, for $1,000, we can get it done. Or if we need to file proof of claim for a bankruptcy filing, it's $250 or whatever it is. A lot of the firms still want to say, okay, well, we got to look at this. We got to put a team of people on it. We got to do some research. And this gets back to my earlier statement and subject that we covered is going to the association meetings and participating and realizing it's not 3, 4 hours to do something. It's 1 hour. And you can bill for that and make it easy. So we've made it easy for our clients. And going back to the marketing, price is one of those attributes of a product. In our case, that's our service. We've made it easy for our clients to buy our services. And either it's going to be hourly for sure if it's non-routine. If it's a very easy in and out type thing, we can price it fixed fee. And they also can hire us on a pay for performance model, which is contingency. And honestly, if you get a lot of that kind of business and you layer it up, knowing you don't win every one of those files with a money award or the return of capital of collateral, then in that case, those are losers for us. But the files that do pay in multiples. Yeah, and that helps cover your losses. So we do the contingency work here too. So are the firms evolving to that? Maybe the small, medium ones are doing it. The big ones is tough. They may do for some of their clients or their special clients where they're billing very well on the other side to cover it. But sometimes you meet with somebody and it's sort of like, okay, how do you bill? It's hourly, and it's more of what am I worth to the market? So the guy that bills $1,000 an hour thinks he's worth more to the market that's 700. I would challenge that. I think if you're willing to do contingency, then you're really putting your butt on the line. You're taking the risk, and you really are partnering with the client versus issuing bills at the end of the month. So,
And I
it's a
just have
culture thing at the
a
end of the day.
personal question. When it comes to the contingency, because we've all seen those ads, and I've always been curious, does it, in your experience, does it usually work out well at the end of the day in the macro, or have you seen situations where organization or law firms have had to pivot and like we can't afford to implement that type of model?
Right. So that's a great question. So what you do in a contingency model is you fence post the transaction. So in other words, we try to make some calls, try to resolve without going to court. The courtroom is not our theater.
Oh,
It's a place of risk. So if we can settle and the client approves of it, look, if you have a medical malpractice claim, they're all settled. I mean, that's where everybody wants to go. It just costs money to litigate, bring in subject matter experts, and go to court and have a trial and all that. So if you're owed, if you think the award's $100,000, and the insurance for the doctor says, well, we'll pay you 70%. You say, well, no, we're looking more like 85. You end up at 80. It's probably a pretty good deal to get it out of the way and be done with. And the law firm will push that. They really will try to sell that. But there are firms out there in all spaces that are doing fees of like 15 and 20%. And when you do something like that, your runway, at least the law firm's runway to work the file, is real short. At some point, they're going to come back and say, we can no longer represent you. We can't put any more time into this because the
right.
reward's not really going to be there at the end. So the guys that do, The 25 at 33 and a third bandwidth, I would say, are the more reputable guys out there, and they're gonna put a full court press on it. But keep in mind, in any contingency model, if it's contested, in other words, we never lent them the money. We know who this person is. And my client says, well, I got your driver's license. You were here. You made the application for that $1 million loan. It's going to go to court. There's going to be a jury, and the model will flip to hourly. That's a standard in our industry. So, again, how good we are in that pre-legal process to make this all happen and go away, everybody wins on that. All three parties will win on that one. But once it's contested and they want to fight vehemently and take it to zero, that's a challenge. That's going to be going hourly. So just realize there is an exit for everybody. And the more you pay in contingency fee will give you a longer runway, more attention to your file with hopefully an end result. The guys that lowball these 10, 15, 20% deals can sometimes be questionable. Remember, there's an old New England saying, it's the empty wagons that rattle the loudest. I'll leave it to that.
So this is a question that we always try to integrate in our interviews because as marketers, this is usually a point of contention with our leadership and our executive board. You have a tremendous track record of delivering measurable results, right, over your career. How do you measure ROI on business development activities in the legal space beyond client acquisition? How do you, when it comes time to present your report, I'm assuming as the lead in your department, what does that look like for you all?
Real simple answer. It's profitable business. I can book millions and millions of dollars of business here, but we're not making any money. And to our earlier conversation, it's on a contingency fee. We're just not collecting anything on it. Something's got to change with that client. Either they're sending us the worst of the worst, which means somebody's getting the better stuff than we are, or or they've done a really good job. There is no low-hanging fruit. And that's again when it comes back to that contingency fee that there's enough money in it for the upside if we get there to be rewarded for our time. If someone's charging a lower fee, then we're going to quit earlier. I mean, it's just how it works. So going back to your question, what was that again? I make sure I answer the whole thing in its entirety.
Yeah, like how do you measure the ROI? You guys do
Okay.
a lot of conferences. Like, how do you then say, because you have such a long sales cycle, so then
Okay.
how do you then say this was worth it?
Yeah, yeah. So before we get into the conference part, so I was talking in terms of the client that we have once we get them on board. So that's one part of the ROI. Because if we're making money there, then the question is where do we get that lead from? Where do we get more of those people? And that goes back to the conference or the association meeting that we met them at. It could be, by the way, this could be a nice event, like it could be at an association having a meeting at a horse track, down in Monmouth County or something. There's one coming up, that's why I thought of that. Or a bowling evening or something. We met people there. So the conference is we take the deals that we close, we got a contract on, and we look at the quality of the work that comes out of that client in that industry. Then we go back to industry. Should we go to that conference again? So a great example is we did X out two associations this year that we had gone to for 3, 4 years in a row. And we looked at the business that we got or never got and said, is it worth joining and giving these people another $3, 4, 5 thousand for the year? We're not getting anything out of it. Can we still go? Maybe as a non-member? Yeah, we can do that too. A little bit of a premium. So we'll go back and test things. But there are some events that are just not producing the prospect that we want, the prospect to the client, and the client of the right kind of work. It's a chain. So, part one of my question was it starting from the client side. Now we work back to the front end as a conference, really delivering what we need. So, personally, I always test myself because to get on an airplane, get 3 nights of hotel, food, beverage, and all that stuff, you're talking $5, 6 thousand. It better be producing some money here. Yeah. I
Fair
test
enough.
myself because I don't like being asked the question, what or a statement is we're not going because we don't get anything. I don't
Right.
like being in that position, so I need to know my business really well.
Smart. So what's next for Cohn and Dussi? What do you guys have coming up this year, next year? What's on the horizon for the firm?
More of the same. The economy right now is sort of changing every 24 hours. You know, the tariffs on or they off? Is it 50% or is it 20%? Just coming back from an event last week, it's up in the air and it has an impact on everybody's business. You know, go to your local Audi dealer and look what's going on with the prices of parts. All right, they're pumped up. The hourly rate now, my local dealer is 269 an hour. I mean, that's an
Wow.
entry level attorney rate that they're
Yeah.
charging to change the oil.
Yeah. Wow.
Right. So we already see the ripple down effect, and a lot of the major lenders are cutting back on lending. Interest rates are kind of holding where they are, which is good. I know President Trump's trying to get Powell to reduce the number a little bit, but we also don't want to have a hard landing into a recession. It's got to be a soft one. So right now, the latter half of 2025 and the first half, or maybe all of 2026, is up in the air, is having an impact. In the meantime, I could say we're in a recession-proof business, but the truth is we all do much better at our firm in the creditors' right space when everything's going well and a company has a hiccup along the way. You know, maybe it's a Chapter 11 for reorganization, or they just can't swing the cash flow back and they need some sort of forbearance agreement to get them over the hump. I'm getting a lot of the creditors are good at doing that themselves, but at some point they may need legal. So right now we get legal files. They're good and bad, but in a better economy, I'd rather have all good files. Files are good at coming out of that kind of better economy because the opportunity to recover is better. Look, when everybody's working and there's cash flow at everybody's desk, everybody wins on that deal. And like I said, if somebody has got a temporary problem, cost of fuel's gone up. Well, then that's temporary. And there's lenders out there that can get those kind of customers out of that problem, out of that predicament. So it's this is going to be interesting year to 18 months, see where it ends up
Yeah.
going. Nobody knows. Nobody really knows.
Well, that wraps today's show. Thank you to our incredible guest, Bob Hanna, Director of National Sales and Marketing of Cohn and Dussi LLC. We'll have contact information in the show notes for anyone interested in learning more. If you enjoyed today's show, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. We'll see you next time.